the Aboriginal voice to Parliament so important? Please give this video a thumbs up and please share this video. In 1788, when the British arrived, they thought Australia was an empty land. They termed Australia Terra Nullius. So right from the colonial settlement, the British did not recognise the people who had lived in Australia. However, it was amazing that Aboriginal civilization had the skill, technology and know-how to live in Australia for more than 60,000 years. Incredible. But because the culture and traditions were so different, the British largely ignored the goodness of the Aboriginal people. From the very beginning, the colonial settlers held a top-down or paternalistic way of seeing and treating Aboriginal people. The colonial settlers thought they knew best. From about 1815, they started moving Aboriginal people off their country and into reserves and missions. They did not ask the Aboriginal people what they thought. By the 1880s, they made it government policy across most of Australia. They did so because the colonial settlers thought they knew best. Did you know it took 8 years to write the Australian Constitution between 1891 to 1898 through a series of conventions conducted by representatives of the 6 self-governing British colonies in Australia? Despite the length of time, the colonial settlers again failed to recognise the original inhabitants of the land. The Australian Constitution, established in is a very general document, the form of the Australian government, and set out the basis for relations between the Commonwealth and the states. The Constitution is not a detailed document, but provides general principles about various aspects of government. Furthermore, the Aboriginal voice is not part of government in terms of judicial and executive power, but rather an advisory body outside the formal government. But from the early 1900s, the Australian government implemented policies of assimilation towards Aboriginal people and culture. The government sought to eradicate Aboriginal culture. Government thought the removal of Aboriginal culture was best. Films like Rabbit Proof Fence show the trauma of many Aboriginal people and the role government played in creating this trauma. Again, governments failed to listen to Aboriginal people. By 1967, Australians voted to change the Constitution so that, like all other Australians, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples would be counted as part of the population and the Commonwealth would be able to make laws for them. More than 90% of Australians voted yes. Aboriginal people received support by many religious groups and churches, which helped to raise awareness about the plight of Aboriginal people. Historically, churches had played a part of the removal of Aboriginal people into Aboriginal missions. The churches realised the deep goodness of Aboriginal people and culture. Churches advocated at the grassroots level to vote yes. Again, in 2023, all major churches like the Anglican Church, the Uniting Church, the Baptist Church, and the Catholic Church have made strong statements supporting the Aboriginal voice to Parliament. In 2023, furthermore, other faiths such as Islamic, Jewish and Hindu have made statements supporting the Aboriginal voice to Parliament, such as the Australian National Imams Council, the Alliance of Australian Muslims, the New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies, and the Hindu Council Advisor Vinjay Singh Hal. By 1972, an Aboriginal tent embassy was established outside the federal parliament in Canberra. The Aboriginal tent embassy showed that Aboriginal people do support the Aboriginal voice. It embodies the struggle for social justice and self-determination, and its presence in the national capital underscores the importance of the Aboriginal voice in Parliament, or to Parliament, and the need for meaningful engagement with Indigenous communities in shaping national policies and decisions. In the years that followed, various Aboriginal bodies were set up by governments to advise governments on Aboriginal matters, such as the National Aboriginal Consultative Committee. The NACC was established in 1973 as the first national Indigenous representative body in Australia. It was intended to advise the federal government on Indigenous issues. However, it faced criticism for its lack of genuine Indigenous representation and was eventually disbanded in 1977. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission, ATSIC, was established in 1989 as a statutory authority to represent and advocate for Indigenous Australians. It had regional councils across the country and played a significant role in Indigenous affairs. However, due to issues related to governments, the Australian government decided to abolish ATSIC in 2005. Because these bodies were created by particular governments, the change of government often meant they were disbanded. Statistically, over recent years, Aboriginal peoples and communities have gone backwards, such as the prevalence of type 2 diabetes, which is approximately 3 times higher among Indigenous adults. The unemployment rate for Indigenous Australians is often more than double the national average. The life expectancy gap is about 8 to 10 years less. This means that on average, Indigenous Australians have a shorter lifespan. But there are different needs in different areas of Australia. The Aboriginal Voice to Parliament will set up a model across all states to establish local Aboriginal Voice committees. The statistics reflect disparities in health, education, and employment highlight the urgency of this recognition. By establishing local Aboriginal Voice committees across states, this initiative offers a flexible and responsive approach to address diverse needs in different regions. The recognition of the Aboriginal Voice to Parliament is important in the Constitution. It recognises the existence of a people who have lived here more than 60,000 years, but it would also provide a framework to listen to Aboriginal people on Aboriginal issues. The recognition of the Aboriginal Voice to Parliament within the Constitution represents a monumental step forward which marks who we are. It not only acknowledges the rich heritage of the world's oldest living culture, but also provides a structured mechanism for listening to and involving Aboriginal people in shaping policies and decisions that directly impact Aboriginal people. The Aboriginal Voice to Parliament comes from over 250 Aboriginal elders at the Uluru Statement from across Australia, the biggest gathering of this type in Australia's history. The Aboriginal Voice comes from Aboriginal people and is a chance to bridge the historical divide, recognise the wisdom and resilience of Aboriginal communities, and work collaboratively towards a more equitable and inclusive future for all Australians. For more information, please go to tinyurl.com/Aboriginal-voice. Thank you.